Ketheric Part 1. Now, several things change right off the bat, and we'll start with the adds in this fight. The Necromites have increased their health to 23, and now have 10 temporary hit points with their Armor of Agathis ability. Every single Necromite that spawns from here on out will also have this, so keep that in mind. So whenever you're in melee range and you break the armor, it does cold damage to you. Keep in mind that if you break the armor from a distance and there's a melee character next to them, it won't harm that character. It'll only harm the person who destroyed the shield to begin with. Next, you have Ketheric himself, who has several new abilities, one of which is the Legion of Bone, and I find this to be the most important. Anytime something dies around him, it summons one of those bone orbs that eventually will spawn a Necromite if you do not destroy it. This spawns on everything that dies around him. That includes Necromites, that includes summons, to some degree, not certain summons like Scratch, for example. And this is an ability that really makes you think and strategize around it. This is not an ability that can be ignored, and it'll come up even more so in the next part. Now, if you're comfortable in your ability to do damage, and you're not using my party configuration, which I admit is not optimal, then you can just power down Ketheric immediately, and this will transition, not the fight, but it'll transition it to an easier state where Ketheric isn't involved. That takes this ability out of the picture and certainly simplifies the fight a lot more. Next, his Horde Strike ability. Anytime he puts Deadly Orders on you and another one of his minions attacks you, he can do 48 force damage to that target, and it hits a lot, and it's also using force damage, which in my opinion is the best damage type in the game. And it's just an extra bit of damage that you have to either heal through or you have to just deal with, but it can be a lot if it's not hitting your bulkier characters. And finally, he has gained resistance to non-magical physical damage, and he's just a paladin, so in general he's going to hit very hard. He has an aura of hate, which means that all of his fiends and undead minions have the charisma modifier to their melee weapons, and he also has an aura of protection like all paladins, which gives them his charisma modifier bonus to their saving throws. And as a result, crowd control becomes less of an option. So when you put that together with his high AC of 22, his high health of 218, and his damage, he just becomes a very formidable enemy. His other minion, the woman Sistera, just likes to spam fireballs. She, along with Ketheric, also use the Incubate Death ability. And that's one thing that's a little quirky about this fight, is the AI. Sometimes I've had fights where Ketheric really involves himself, and this also applies to part 2. He'll jump right in the fight, and he'll, like you'll see in this footage, and he'll start smiting and doing melee damage. But I've also had some fights where he'll just stay on top of that platform and just incubate death and not really do anything. Same thing with the platform in the second part. And I'm not sure why that is. So there is a little bit of randomness to this fight. It's worth keeping in mind that you can eliminate some of the participants in this battle. For instance, I did not mention his undead dog companion because I killed him in Moonrise Towers earlier before this fight began. The Drider can also participate if you don't kill him before this, though I can't imagine why you wouldn't. Having him in this fight would just be pretty devastating, I would imagine. So make sure you take both of them out before you even start. So getting to the actual strategy, it can be difficult to employ my usual go-to, which would just be control adds, kill minions, and then focus boss because of his Legions of Bone ability and their keenness to just keep casting Incubate Death, which pumps more Necromites out the same turn they're cast if you don't kill them. So it's very easy to get overwhelmed if you're not using multi-attack characters, or you're not using potions of speed to destroy these undead spheres the same turn they come out, I don't think that this fight is nearly as strict or restrictive as Part 2, so you can bring a lot more melee characters and probably have a lot more success than you would than in the next part. But I think that the owlbear form for druids, which is what I'm using here, works exceptionally well just because of their claw attacks. You get two of them, and then the crushing flight ability, which can just kill these skeleton orbs all on its own, and if they're grouped up together, even better. So any kind of multi-attack, like you say, warrior or barbarian or whatever, that can take these out quickly is completely recommended. So definitely take your time when you're trying to strategize how to deal with these additional ad spawns. And another thing to keep in mind is that this fight is pretty much a free-for-all because you're going to get a free full rest before part 2. So if you really want to go ham, use all your spells, high level spells, don't really worry about that because we're going to get to a point where we don't need them and you'll be taken care of way before we need them again. So just go crazy with it, but do keep in mind that portent rolls, lucky rolls do not recharge when you use that uh, weird Nautilus thing at the right before you go to the part 2. So try not to use them all here like I did. Hint hint. And never count on Dame Aelin to be useful at all. Usually she just misses. She does high damage when she does connect, but especially when you're fighting the Apostle of Merkel, she's just gonna die. Don't bother trying to get her up. So, as long as you manage those ads or kill them as they're being spawned in, and you have a way to deal with the excess damage from his Horde Strike ability, and just the extra damage being thrown around in general, then this fight should not be difficult for you. I would definitely recommend bringing in a party that's not meant for the long game like I have. From the get-go, this was a bad party setup, not just, again, for this fight, but for the next one. But if you could bring in another paladin or something that can just really destroy enemies quickly, I would recommend that highly. Have your potions ready. You're going to need them. If you haven't made any potions of necrotic resistance, I recommend that also. And this party that you're in right now is going to determine the party that you bring into the second part of the fight. You'll have a little bit of time before you go into the Nautiloid lair, but make sure you change your party before you go in. You're going to want something with heroism or just a paladin in general if you're comfortable with that because of their aura of courage. We're going to need something to negate fear. That's going to be really important going into the next battle. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.